What's up, gang? Welcome back to another episode of Michael Thoughts. Today, I'm going to talk about why CrossFit or Orange Theory or Boot Camp or just large group choreographed fitness doesn't work for 99% of people over the long term. Okay. Now, there are some people that it does work for. So, first question is, does your life revolve around the gym? That means, do you commit hours and hours per week and per day at the gym? And is it your number one priority where you're going to sacrifice social experiences, food choices, drinking, and hours outside of the gym in your personal life in order to prioritize the gym and the results that you're getting from the gym? And if it is not your number one priority that your life revolves around, then that's a huge factor in whether or not it's going to work for you long term. Some commonalities of successfully shredded people in those group environments include that being in the gym, their performance, their diet, and their aesthetic, that's their number one priority. And they commit a lot of time to it. And they spend a lot of money on it, meaning that is their number one focus, right? They're going to spend the money on the supplements that they need, the diet stuff that they need to do. They're going to take the time to cook and prepare. They're going to spend the money and take the time to recover. And they're going to prioritize getting the coaching and spending the hours in the gym. If that's not you, then chances are just random large group choreographed fitness, generic fitness isn't going to be the thing that's going to be most effective for you. And doing hardcore circuits and running yourself into the ground and focusing on how many calories you burn in a workout and how hard it is and whether or not you collapse and are crazy sore, it's simply not the most effective strategy, or it's a wildly ineffective strategy. At a certain point, there's simply a better way to get it done. When you are in a large group setting and somebody has written the workout with one person in mind, that means that the large group workout is right for someone, but it's certainly not right for everybody else in the room if it's right for anybody. And there are certain key principles that must be hit in anybody's training program if they want to make progress. Certain things like specificity, adaptation, recovery, total volume, skill set, progressive overload. If you're not hitting on those key principles, you're not going to make progress. And when you're doing large group choreographed, regardless of how organized it is, for most of us, it still ends up being random based off of our life schedule. You're not going to be able to hit them. Some specific examples are that if you want to get stronger and you want to build muscle mass, there are two key factors that you have to think about. One is relative intensity. If you're not lifting above 70%, chances are you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to build muscle mass. Now, there's benefits to endurance of doing lesser volume, but if your goal is strength or hypertrophy muscle building, that just becomes junk volume because it doesn't help you get stronger and it doesn't help you build more muscle mass. All it does is take resources away from recovery and prolong the process of recovery. So we classify that as junk volume. And then per set needs to, in terms of building stronger and getting stronger, building muscle mass, means you need to be within about 5 reps of failure or saving just 1 or 2 reps in reserve in order to make those sets maximally effective or effective at all, really. So when you're pushing a set, if you're not just 1, 2, 3 reps short of failure, the quality of that set is pretty low, meaning it's junk volume. You're not able to push yourself on each set at a heavy enough weight in order to get that close to failure, proximity to failure, and stop with that many reps in reserve when you're under extreme fatigue. And that's what happens when you're doing circuits. So if you're doing something like squat and run, chances are that you're going to fatigue and fail and stop that set short, not because you're approaching muscular failure, but because you're approaching failure due to general fatigue, which is a completely different thing. When we push ourselves and we get tired and we stop, body tired, mentally tired, emotionally tired, general fatigue is not the same as muscular failure and muscular reps in reserve. And it becomes a huge limitation to what you're hitting in large group choreographed fitness versus a structured progressive overload program. General fatigue, high intensity, high repetition can lead to injuries and aches and pains. Some people have a large problem with that when fatigue accumulates. Some people will never run into it, no big deal. But when you're doing large group circuits and choreographed fitness and CrossFit and Orange Theory and boot camps, technique of the exercises is going to start to decrease as fatigue increases in the absence of a break. especially if you're lifting heavy enough, above 70% of 1 rep max. Your technique is going to start to fail. You're not going to be able to move a heavy enough load. Again, accumulating a whole bunch of junk volume. And then muscular tension and whether or not you're using momentum and swinging it with your joints. So if we're doing thrusters and kipping pull-ups and running and burpees, that volume isn't quality volume. You're not actually using control and muscular tension. Even if you slow down and do it with perfect technique, you're still using a lot of momentum at loads that are too low in order to stimulate strength and muscle growth. So you're accumulating junk volume and just prolonging your ability to recover, which is the last thing that is written there. It's not specific to you, it's random. The volume and progressive overload are never going to be able to be hit in a large group choreographed. And you're probably not going through phases, right? When you're doing a large group CrossFit, choreographed fitness, Orange Theory boot camp, the programming doesn't have specific phases with measurable outcomes. You might repeat benchmark workouts periodically, but for the most part, it's just going to be constantly varied. That's the principle behind everything. Unfortunately, muscle confusion isn't a real thing, and muscles don't get confused. And if they did, you wouldn't want them to be confused because you need to progressively overload them and work on the skills, which, they can't be confused if you want to do that. So constant variance in muscle confusion has limits in terms of its benefit. But key principles of specificity, skill, progressive overload, tension, recovery, those things can't be hit in a large group format, in choreographed fitness format. You need individuality, you need specifics, and you need to hit key principles. That's why people, once the phase of newbie gains ends, needs to shift. So if you're 3 months, 3 years, depending on the individual, it doesn't matter what you do. You can do choreographed randomness and it's all going to work no matter what. But at some point, your adaptation will slow down and stop, and the principles become more important. And if you don't do something to hit key principles, it doesn't matter how hard you try every single day, you're just simply not going to progress, maybe at all, anymore. You're not going to build muscle, you're not going to burn fat, you're not going to get stronger. You're just going to be constantly exhausted, sore, aches and pains, but not see the progress. At some point along the line for everybody, they want to continue to make progress and get to the next level. They need something specific, unique to them. CrossFit, choreographed fitness, Orange Theory boot camp. At some point, it's going to stop working. Do work.